Scott and Patricia, so I don't need to do the introductions there.
Yes, I do know them.
Yeah, so they are part of the asset management team who this position will be part of.
Yep.
So Nick, the interview will be very informal. We've got some set questions to ask, but feel free to ask some questions of your own as we go along. And you'll also have a chance at the end as well to ask any that you may have thought of along the way. I'm going to hand over to Scott. He's going to give you a brief overview of what's involved with the role, and then we'll get into the questions.
Sure, thank you.
Hey, Nick.
Hi, mate.
So this role, when we first started 2 years ago, we focused on long-term asset management planning, and we reallocated some of the operational tech support to that task. Because we did that because that was the biggest need in the organization at the time, and our biggest gap. And now, as a result, our support for the operational technical support for the operation has been left wanting. And even though it was a deliberate decision to do that, we're now coming back and recognizing we really do need technical support from our team, and we have 2 roles to support that. So there's the more senior engineering role, and then I see this is very much a partnership between that role and this role to achieve a few things. One being technical, any problem that will require some technical response, so an engineering response for all of our assets, being mechanical and our civil assets. What we call landholder funded work, so our customers, or the landholders more aptly, request changes to the assets, and so that by rule needs engineering assessment. So we manage, so we have a subcontract performing the design for us, which is PVE, so you're aware of them as well. Yep. So right now Lorinda is the touch point for PVE, but we'd like this 2-person team to take over that responsibility. So this role is really that straddling both worlds of engineering and technical and operations. So need a bit of both, really.
Yep.
So someone to speak with the stakeholders and then speak with the engineers and come up with a practical and see the whole picture, because both sides can often miss perspective. Some of the things are about perspective, but understand perspective all sides. Engineers miss easy wins at times, and some other stakeholders often think solutions are a bit more simple than they often are. So this role, really should, there's a very proactive component, particularly in the operational side, to go out and find some of the problems before they become larger problems. So this is one of those, let's solve this, so nip them in the bud before it gets too hard to control, really.
Yeah.
There's also, the role will change slightly during the winter works period, when there's plenty of opportunity to support the operations and in engineering as well, and managing ITPs, so surveillance style operations. And I envisage working pretty closely with Phil to help manage our safety. Another set of boots on the ground, really.
Yep.
Because that, as you know, we're a remote team, so sometimes it's a bit hard just to have a quick look.
Mm-hmm.
And this provides eyes and ears and arms and legs for our team.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the role.
Any questions on that, Nick, at all?
No, just a bit of an observation that I'd imagine I'd fit in pretty much as a bit of a conduit between landholders and contractors and things like that, and the asset management side.
Yes, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, we might get started on the questions. So, Nick, can you give us just a brief history of your experience and why you've applied for the role?
Yeah, sure. So I've got over 10 years of experience in construction and maintenance and logistics and compliance. Most previously as a project site supervisor with Blackwatch, as everyone probably knows, out in the back office there. Works probably not too unsimilar to what this role is. Heading out the site, dealing with landholders and contractors, dealing with safety issues, compliance issues, ensuring built to spec and things like that off plans, liaising with the engineers, requests for information, dealing with ITPs, and stuff like that. Prior to the Blackwatch role, I was a maintenance technician, which was for a Sydney-based company, but working in Melbourne. They were called Modus Projects, and that was job arrangements, I suppose. Maintenance works from start to finish. So I'd go out, I'd quote the jobs, order and organise materials, and then complete the jobs. Complete all the reporting and everything that went along with it. There was, I suppose, a maintenance structure or a documenting structure to that we'd put all our information back to the coordinators in head office, and that'd work into being more of setting it up as more of a proactive role rather than reactive maintenance, so that we'd end up going back and doing assessments and things like that before any issues grew. Prior to that, I suppose I had a job as a train driver. Very, very safety orientated role, that one, and quite technical too. So that built on my strengths for safety focus and communication and stuff like that, as well as a role prior to that as a correctional officer. Pretty much built on those strengths as well. This particular role itself, I suppose, I applied for this. The passion started growing with the Blackwatch role, and being out on site, the local area, and the things that MIL do for the landholders and for the environment. So I suppose I built a little bit of a passion about it. Plus, it works, I suppose, directly in with my history and with my skills and experience. And yeah, I just hope to use that to continue contributing and utilise it as best I can with the asset management team to fulfil this role, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nick. Question 2, can you please explain your understanding and experience with asset management, including any experience with asset inspections and using an asset management system?
Well, I suppose asset management is a role that should be looked on primarily as proactive rather than reactive. I believe it's a lot more cost effective assessing and repairing faults before they happen, rather than the alternative. So going out and fixing a broken machine, it's easier to maintain and repair on the go, I suppose. Yep. And that's what the role basically was with Modus Projects as a maintenance technician there. So the maintenance system they used wasn't so much hands-on for me. It was more about my reporting and the reporting heading back to the coordinators in head office. They'd use the maintenance system to ensure we were scheduled in for regular maintenance reviews and everything like that. So whilst I wasn't directly involved with the maintenance program itself, I did have access to it and was able to utilise it to schedule my works and my days around, I suppose, heading out to site proactively and doing asset assessments, I suppose you call them. It's a little bit difficult because it's not so much larger assets that we're talking about here for MIL. It's more office kind of maintenance and things like that. So that's how that one worked. With Blackwatch, I suppose everything went into SharePoint and was fed back to the engineers. And it was more about construction rather than asset management there. But we did, towards the end of the project, we were required to review and assess and watch some of these things, I suppose, as you'd say, go underwater and just, I suppose, go from asset, making sure that their initial flow and everything like that was okay, because I suppose nothing was surveyed 100% correctly, so it was all about heading out and making sure everything worked in the first instance. So it was, as you guys would know, they were all new builds. So following on to that, and it's probably, I suppose, with Blackwatch it's a little less about assessing faults and anything like that. As far as aging the system goes, it's more about a new initial setup. So, and then we got, I suppose, the computer management system that you guys are using. I'm pretty sure I'm confident enough to adapt to any of MIL's operating systems and things like that. That'd be something that I'd imagine would be rather simple to learn. And if it isn't, there's always room for improvement, or ask questions, or just get some help along the way.
Yep, great, thank you. I'll hand over to Patricia for the next couple of questions.
Yep, sure.
So Murray Irrigation is committed to improving asset management practices. What would be your approach to assisting with implementation of continuous improvement across the organization?
I suppose the initial process of beginning this role would be more listening, observing and learning about the processes, to start with the current system that you use, the current processes that's fed out between the asset management team and the on-site teams and field techs and everything like that. So probably initially start the learning process and go on from there to learn how to, I suppose a big part of the role is reviewing reports, data outcomes, performing inspections, reporting on them, collaborating with all the other teams, as I said, field teams, and the customer service team and things like that, I'd imagine, as well as probably mostly with you guys, Patricia and Scott, being the engineers of this role, as well as the two-person team that you're about to put on the ground. So working in amongst that team collaboratively, and I think it's basically a lot of reporting back. So my role would probably be reporting back on conditions and inspections of assets, on-site visits, communicating with landholders and things like that. So I'd probably be maybe one of the first or second faces of call for some of the landholders to just touch base and see what's required or needed, and then bring that information back to the office. Whether their assets issue with the assets or new assets or maintenance to the assets. Just monitor continued changes and I suppose assist the landholder information coming back to the office in that way.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. Next question is, the primary purpose of this role is proactively seek out problems before they become larger issues and make existing works happen more smoothly. How would you achieve this objective?
As I said before, I do believe, especially when it comes to maintenance, proactive is, I suppose it works out to be a lot more cost effective than reactive works and trying to fix a problem before it manifests itself. An asset that isn't working properly definitely costs you money. So maintenance and ensuring long-term maintenance is probably a more cost-effective way. Now, I'd imagine, and in your process, in the MYL process, there'd be documentation and reporting and a lot of regular asset observations and visits. So I'm envisaging that it's probably a set process, like each asset has a particular routine inspection date, and it's a matter of ensuring they're up and detailed. I'm very big on putting a lot of details in on my reports and things like that. So I believe information, you cannot have too much information as long as it's direct and it's in the right context. I'm losing a little bit of that question. Have I gone in the right direction there, Patricia?
Yeah, I think you have. Yeah, I think that is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you? Do you have anything, Scott?
Yep, we'll keep going. Question number 5. Nick, can you tell us about your communication skills, including negotiation skills and stakeholder engagement, and provide an example where you have had to deal with a difficult stakeholder?
I suppose that was one of the primary parts of my role with Blackwatch, dealing with contractors in particular and landholders, as well as suppliers and things like that, but primarily with the landholders and the contractors and reporting and bringing that information back to the team and back to the engineers. So daily, it'd be daily visits out to see the contractors, ensuring that the landholders, I suppose, were happy with the way works were going, that they weren't interfering with their day-to-day routine as well. I suppose an example of, I don't suppose you'd call it a difficult landholder, but we had one of our installs was delayed for a number of reasons. It came down to a different size structure. Precast wasn't readily available, and we had an arranged date with this landholder that the entire works would close off his driveway for about 2 weeks, and that was all okayed and agreed with. But the construction date blew out by about 2 weeks because of getting the precast that I just mentioned. And that started to eat into landholders' time of harvesting. So whilst he was still happy for the works to go ahead and for his driveway to be cut off, there was a requirement that he needed to get his air seeder in and through and from his north paddock out and down south to the main road. So we had to deal with that between the landholder and the contractor. It came down to negotiations regarding, in particular, I suppose, balancing safety requirements and operational requirements to get this access road built out and around and through the creek required a bit of a negotiation between particularly the contractor who didn't have this in his scope of works and hadn't quoted on it. It was a matter of making sure the farmer was okay, ensuring that because he had to drive through a creek bed, we weren't disturbing any environmental issues in the creek bed or any identified protected trees or anything like that. So in the end, we made him this amazing windy road through the creek bed that he ended up being happy with. The contractors agreed to. The contractors were good and were on our side as well. They were all about keeping the farm holders or the landholders happy. So yeah, it was just a negotiation process as to how to achieve this and especially how to do it safely and avoid all the other important assets and things like that. So there was a couple of those that happened in a similar sort of way, but that was probably the biggest one. Yeah, and I believe that dealing like that, it's just a collaboration and respect between all three parties, I suppose. As long as everything is done respectfully, yeah, you can always achieve a good outcome.
Yeah, good. At the moment, we call, so let's tell you a bit about landholder funded work. So a landholder will request to change the access. A common one is want to increase their flow rates.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they'll make requests through a customer engagement team. There might be a back and forth in between the customer and maybe the operations staff historically. And then we need to engage a designer, and we need to approve and be from an engineering management perspective, understand what's going on. So when it come across my desk, it often is a half a dozen different emails that are going in different directions and attached emails and information and spreadsheets and all over the place. And then similarly, when we get advice back from the engineer, there might be another half a dozen back and forth between the engineers. Can you tell me why that might be a bit problematic?
I suppose.
So it's a two-part this question. So why is it problematic, and how would you solve it?
All right. So you're talking about a lot of information backwards and forwards between engineers and landholders and designers.
Customer engagement, so people request customer engagement's involved, operations can be involved, engineering's involved, contracting.
There you go.
Involved.
And I think you've just answered it for me. It's too many people trying to answer the same question. So I think limiting that between 2 or 3 people rather than 15 or 16 people clarifies. It'll help keep your emails. If email is your communication of choice, it'll keep them clearer, and it will keep them designed between 2 or 3 people a little more directly at the landholder and between the designer and the landholder. If there's too many steps, you lose. It's like Chinese whispers. You lose too much information along the way, or people just tend to add too many things. I'm thinking that where you're going with this is my role in this step is to eliminate a couple of those extra people and being a bit of a stepping stone in the middle to pass on this information and make sure it's clear and concise on both ends, I suppose. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, and I agree that the way that we manage the number of people needs to be managed better. But if we limit the number of people involved, would that potentially miss important information by not engaging with all the stakeholders?
Well, a little bit of a double-edged question maybe there, Scar, because many eyes are more likely to pick up more faults, but too many people tend to add their own little 10 cents worth, and that's where things start to blow out. So I suppose you need to control that in some way and have someone make the ultimate and final decision and I suppose shrink it down or summarise, but accurately.
Yep, agreed. So you mentioned if you made the statement if email was your choice for communication.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably the only one at the moment, but you started off.
That's my question, is if you're not going to email, what perhaps is a better way to manage that process?
No, I don't think I can suggest a better way, but the way you started that with a long chain of emails, that in itself can get confusing. So I've got no way of suggesting a different or a better type of communication. Email is probably the best, but yeah, once you start getting a lot of people in an email chain and it goes backwards and forwards and your email becomes really long with a lot of different answers, that's where you start getting confused.
Yeah. So also a concern is having this long email chain, and say we pick a solution and implement it, and a couple years, another part of the network that is impacted by this, but we need to change that as well. You could imagine that it might be very difficult to find all the relative information if they're just in emails.
Mm-hmm.
So what might be a better way to document?
Well, I suppose if it changes a process, it needs to be recorded. So I'm sure there's a process as to how everything happens, and it needs to be followed. So if you're following the right processes, everything should happen directly and the same. And then all that communication obviously gets recorded on each and every job. Now, if you're following the process and you don't need to change the process, then there shouldn't be too much adjustment for the next job. But if there is, then that's when you assess your process, assess all your processes, and maybe just review them or adjust them.
Yeah, look, have to do that, and definitely I'm very process driven.
Yep.
So I agree with all that. So what I've been working with Lorinda and doing is we're calling it a scoping document, but it's really just a 1 or 2 page report that summarizes the request and the objectives and anybody input that we've got. And that's where we are now. So we have made that change. So instead of a bunch of emails, but my vision is to have for each, because these are small projects, right? Is what they are. They're small changes. So they're really small projects. So really the vision is to have a 2 page document. One summarizes what the impetus for it. So the customer requested more volume. So the objective, that's a very clear objective. I think that one, because most of them are far more convoluted than that, but that's a very clear objective. And then we'd have document the, because this is not happening now, document the engineering summary in that same document. The idea being that 2 years time, if we want to know what created the change and what change we implemented and everything, just to tell the story. It's really a story, right? That there's a 1 or 2 page document for every change that we make.
And that process there in itself is where you can summarize your very long email chain into that process. Make sure all the information from that email chain goes into that job and follows that process, and then you've got that documentation to refer back on if the same problem or the same question comes about again in the future.
So if that is certainly my vision, and I want to make those changes, so would you be comfortable being that person who who reads all the emails and maybe interviews and asks questions about
Yeah.
what happens, and then to document it in that one or two email, and then go to the engineers and have that conversation. Even when the engineers come back, there might be 4 or 5 pages worth of designs and 4 or 5 different spreadsheets of different options, and
Yep.
if it would help the team, I think, if it was all summarized. So we look at the problem, we look at the proposed solution. If there's no problems, we move on, right? And if
So
there's
it's very much a collaboration and a collation from my side. So gathering all the information, putting
Can
it
you
all
wake up,
into
Micah, please?
a summary
Thank you.
to similarize all similar works.
Yeah. So we started with this even when Patricia started. We asked one of the operations people. Patricia's very first thing was, we have a problem, we need help.
Yep.
And so we asked for a scoping document. At the time, I perhaps was frustrated that we didn't receive one. But spending a bit more time in the organization, a lot of these people are stretched so thin that don't have time to sit down. So nobody has time to sit down and read all these documents and put them all and try to make heads or tails of it. But we're asking everyone to do it, right? Everybody that touches it. So I think it's far more beneficial for one person to really understand it, document it, and then for myself, for example, I can just read 2 pages, and if there's any other questions, like, oh, that makes sense. This was the problem. This is what we considered. These didn't work for this reason. This is a choice. Move on. So, yeah.
Okay.
So convince me, Nick, that you'd be the right person to do that.
Well, it seems like what you're saying is that you want me to establish a process where I'm summarizing, I'm looking for differences, I'm looking for similarities, I'm making the process all the same from each and every job, making sure they all collate the same and correctly, and turning that into a summary for each individual job, so that I suppose when it hits your hands, when it comes to your desk, you've got all the information there, and it's all familiar. It's all the same as the process as it's supposed to run. Any differences, any anomalies are highlighted or added where needed, or I suppose similarities will already be in the process itself anyway. Just make sure that they're there and that they happen. I am very detail orientated. As I said before, writing any reports and everything like that, I add every single detail that needs to be added with the aim of not babbling or anything like that. I babble when I talk. I'm having, as you can tell right now, but I believe in reports need to be concise, but they need to be correct too as well. So collating all this into something simpler and easier to read, and just making sure that any anomalies and details are spotted from the original process. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think so. And I am not a particularly detailed-oriented person.
Mm-hmm.
I very much appreciate when those around me are. And it's one of those things where the detail is really important to have there, whether it's read or not, right? Because maybe 80% of the time it gets never read. But that other 20%, man, it's got to be there and it's got to be right.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we go from there. All right, so I think you have a pretty good feel now after this conversation of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So if you were successful, Nick, what would your first 100 days look like?
Well, I suppose with any job, there's always the honeymoon period. I'd imagine 100 days is quite a long honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Pardon?
No, I didn't mean to laugh, but yes, there is.
Yeah. I suppose that 100 days is probably quite a long honeymoon period. But with any job, your first foot in the door is all about learning and observing. Like you don't. It's not possible to jump in with both feet and believe you understand a particular organisation's processes or systems or anything like that. So you've got to be open to learning all that. You don't step in the door and all of a sudden you're telling everyone this is how I do it. It's a case of coming in and learning how they do it and how they already how their processes already work. So learning, watching, observing, building relationships with the team, understanding and the systems, learning about the assets that we're going to be looking after, how they work, what their design parameters are, all that sort of stuff. What's required, who our stakeholders are, the contractors, the landholders, site visits to get familiar with the terrain, I suppose, building rapport with all stakeholders, so I don't need to rename them, relist them, and then I suppose contribute.
That's good, Nick. I might just point you in a direction.
Yeah.
So, if I think a big part of this role, and we've already discussed, is nipping things in the bud before they become a problem. So, John is the maintenance manager, and Andy is the ops manager. Mm-hmm. So, what could you do to make sure the potential problems are resolved even before it gets to, say, John or Andy?
Well, I suppose the first 100 days is to speak to people like that and learn their priorities to start with. Now, what you're talking about is figuring out what the issues may be before they reach them. Now, I suppose that's where the maintenance management system will come into play, where there's early observations, early reporting on assets and things like that to ensure that their maintenance is kept up. I don't suppose that would.
I think you understand our objective. So if there's a team of two to do this, how might you divvy up the tasks between you and then a qualified engineer to make sure we support the team in a technical sense?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if it's anything like the role I had with Blackwatch, my job was to be the feet on the ground, the eyes, the ears, and the voice between the engineers and the landholders and contractors. So my daily tasks, all of that, were to see if there were any issues or concerns between the landholders and the construction itself, or the contractors and their parts of the construction. Deal with what I could on the spot, or work it back up the chain via the engineers or up to the project manager. Any design questions or construction questions or anything like that I could handle or answer on the spot, I'd do so. Then obviously report that straight back to the engineer. In a daily report, obviously, we used to complete daily job activity sheets as to what the contractors were up on a daily basis, and that was free for the engineers to review. And I suppose my job is to bring all that information back to the office in that way, that the on-site information back to the office, if that's the case. Run it past the engineer, make sure everything is heading in the right direction. If there's any requests for information or anything like that, then filter that up through the engineer. In regards to your process system that we were talking about before, I suppose that one's a little bit tricky. How do I? Yeah, I'm getting a little bit stuck with that one, Scott. I suppose sharing information. I suppose my job would be to simplify and clarify any requests that come through, filter it up to the engineer, which is the second person on site with me. Is that right? Or the second person in the Denny office? Is this the team you're talking about?
So there'll be two people on my specific team to provide technical support for the operation. One of them will be an engineer, and one of them will be more practical base.
Yeah, that's this role. Yeah, the practical base. The liaising,
it's a bit of a challenge because you want it's a bit of a like you said, a conduit. So it's have site experience and potentially operating experience or maintenance experience on the tools, but also the computer skills and communication skills, and so it's sort of that bit of everything, really.
Yep. And those 4 or 5 things that you just spat out, then I've got experience in all of that sort of stuff. It's just a matter of whether whether the way I do it fits in with the way you want it done. And I'm very flexible. I'm imagining it's not going to be that difficult to learn. It's just a matter of learning your processes. And
part of it is there's not as much to learn in terms of processes in place. It'll be building something new.
Yep.
So learn the operation, learn the people, build those relationships.
Yeah.
Is there a clear process to follow at the moment? Not so much.
Yeah.
If there was, we probably wouldn't be having some of the problems that we have.
Yeah, okay.
So it's an opportunity to put your own brand on it, really.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. That like it's a rather new role. It hasn't really got the bones around it, so it's got a little bit of flexibility for me to build it as well.
That's why it's really important that this person is proactive, and you can't wait for things to come to you in this role, because by then it'll be too late.
I've never worked like that. So I've always chased problems, issues, and queries and everything like that. I don't believe in sitting back. It's proactive rather than reactive. I don't believe in reactive work, because I think that costs money. That it not only slows things down, it causes damage.
All right, thanks for that. Liz, can you wrap us up?
Yep. Nick, do you have any questions for us on the role?
Well, I suppose not really. Like the thing is, like I'm aware that this is I'm now aware that it's a brand new role, and that it needs to be structured and rebuilt. I suppose you've explained what the priorities of the role are going to be, and how it's going to build and develop with whoever fills the role, I suppose. At the end of the day, I suppose, how will this role be measured in its success? Is it run by KPIs? Is it run by I don't know.
I think success looks like, for this role, in 12 months, if we have a good relationship with the customer engagement team, there will be some KPIs around that. So ideally, how quickly, or make sure that our responses are provided to them and constructed, really, in the times, the given times, but even more specifically, Fish and Pete and Dave. If we can take some work off them, and they're less stressed. Really, if they're less stressed, look, we've got to win. Like, if there's any matrix, it's really if Fish and Dave and Pete have their work under control, in terms of the exceptional things. There'll be business as usual, but that's where we come in is when it's not business as usual. Or if we identify that business as usual is changing the same type of gate out, once a year, and it shouldn't be done that way. So if there's a consistent failure, so we have short mean time between failures. So yeah, I think that's really the best metrics. If we ask Fish, Pete, Dave, and Laura of the customer engagement team how we're going, I mean, that's an anecdotal what success looks like, but if those relationships are working, I think the rest will follow.
Yep. That sounds good. I suppose the less pushback or irritations we're getting back from them, or I suppose if we're putting a smile on their face, and we can
the supervisors
consider ourselves successful.
It's another good opportunity for my team to get a bit more exposure to the supervisors.
Yeah.
Because you often know, what the hell are those engineers doing over there in the office?
Yeah. Okay.
So you get a bit of that. Well, I haven't here, but I just know that's standard, right? So
do you think
whether or not I've heard it or gotten feedback that it's happened, I know those comments are always made.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's an opportunity to build relationship with supervisors and leading hands, operators as well.
I'm the one that's going to be copying the flack for all your work. Is that correct?
Well, we do it well, communicate well. Hopefully, we're singing each other's praises. So.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with negotiation and everything like that. I've got a lot of experience in that. I was on my first job site at about 5 years old, and the first thing my dad taught me was firm handshake and look a man in the eye. And that's where you build your first relationship and your first rapport with anyone that you meet on a job site.
All right, good. Liz?
Any other further questions, Nick?
No, I suppose maybe going forward, is this role likely to expand? Is it going to grow proportionately or disproportionately? I suppose requiring further learnings or educations or training or anything like that. And I'd be keen to do anything like that in the future that may improve this role. So, is there any likelihood of that, or is it any?
Yeah, well, seeing as we haven't, it's a bit of a dynamic space, so we will. I'd see the role growing as we better understand the needs of the organization. I can see the role growing to fit those needs.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly not at the moment, but maybe there's some kind of budget. If we look at the budget for the following years, there's some kind of analysis that we can do to do that, or I don't know, could be anything. Whatever, but the point is whatever the operation needs from a technical perspective. Yeah,
Let's
procurement
get
maybe
first, and work from there.
So right now there's always this discussion, and who's doing procurement? Is it the engineers or is it the planners? Like those type of things. So maybe it fills that gap. Mm-hmm. I'm not suggesting that's the solution, but that's a fuzzy roles and responsibility at the moment. So maybe this role steps in to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, good. I think that's about all I have. Thank you, Liz.
That's all right. Just in closing off the interview, we do like to let candidates know that we do drug and alcohol testing at Murray Irrigation, so you would have been used to that at Blackwatch.
Yeah.
Do you have any significant holidays booked in the next 6 months we'd need to be aware of? So more than 2 weeks?
No, there's a couple of days here and there, but there's nothing any more than that.
Yep. Do you have a salary expectation for the role?
Probably guessing this role would be maybe around about 90 to 100k.
And if successful, when could you start?
I can make an immediate start, I suppose. I don't have very many things to move around, so I'm available.
Right. Great. Okay. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
it's been good. And we hope to make a decision by the end of the week. So
Wonderful,
we'll be
thank you.
in touch one way or the other.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, we'll let you get on with the rest of your day.
No worries. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. What did we think?
I thought he was pretty good with his responses. I like that he's very detail oriented, and he sounded like a very organized sort of person. And yeah, I thought he did really good with the interview.
Yeah, I think he's very nervous.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a problem solver per se, but that's why we've got hopefully Paul working with him. But I think if Paul gives him direction that I really need to go figure out a bit more about this, go have a look and even like I elaborated on, if we have it someone to really understand a problem and then document it, so it takes everybody else less time. I think that'd be a big win as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I think he's a pretty good fit for that.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then Jenny, hooray!
Yes, he's local. Yeah. Yep, no, I think he, from his work at Blackwatch, I think he has a lot of skills that could transfer into this role.
Yeah, I think so too. But prior to that, you'd have to question whether he had the right skills, but from the sounds of that. So we do reference checks after this, do we?
Yes,
Sure.
the next step's reference checks.
Yeah,
And a police check as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to speak to somebody from Blackwatch to see how he went there.
Yep. Yes.
All right.
All
Any
right.
other comments? Certainly, if it's between Gary and Nick, I know which way I'd go.
Yeah, Nick is the front runner at the moment. Yeah. All right, well, we'll see how Steve, I think it's Steve, the next one goes in a few minutes.
All right, great. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, see you back soon.
See ya.
Bye.